So this is part 2 of our Q&A from you guys. So if you listened to the last episode, then you'll know that it was mostly about competition prep, diet strategies. So what we've done, we've saved some questions for this episode, which are a little bit more general pop based, or a little bit more kind of general diet based questions from you. So in case you don't know who we are, I'm Gad Sapstead.
James Walters.
And we are your hosts. So we're just going to be diving straight into these questions because we've got some really, really good ones. So if you listen to the last episode, like we went off on tangent on about 2 questions, and I think it's probably like a 40-minute plus podcast episode.
This one's going to be short, sharp, to the point, answer the question, give the people what they need to know.
Exactly. Okay, so this is a question for you because this is from one of your clients, and this is quite a funny one. Okay, so Kayla Jean says, I'm going to read this. I bug James with my questions all the time. One thing I'm curious about is timing of my workouts. Although I try to keep the same schedule each day, it doesn't always work out that way. Some days I have to do it at 5 a.m. and others I'm in the gym at 9 p.m. Is there an ideal amount of time that you need to rest between workouts for them to be the most effective? It's kind of a different question there.
There's like 2 there.
For example, if I have to do it at 9 p.m. one night, is it bad to work out the next day at 5 a.m.?
I have this question a lot, especially with like new starters, and it's like, when should I train? I'm not here to dictate your schedule. I'm not here to tell you to eat 6 meals. I'm not here to tell you to train 6 days a week. The plans that we put in place are to work around you. So if you've only got 4 days available to train and you've only got time to eat 4 meals a day or whatever it is, we work with you and I create a plan that works around that. So the most important thing is kind of consistency with your training in terms of the week. It doesn't matter what time as such. Ideally, in an ideal world, which the world is not ideal, I like people to train and have eaten at least 1 meal, and that should just provide some fuel for the session, prevent muscle breakdown. But if people have to wake up, because I know a lot of people, they work on 9 to 5 or even earlier, and then they've got family and children, so you might finish at 5 o'clock, and if you're going to the gym at 5 o'clock, you're not going to spend time with your children. So the most important thing is being happy and enjoying the process. So if someone wants to train early in the morning, someone's training early in the morning, I'm all for it, and I'll put in either a digestible carb, maybe even a banana, EAAs, maybe a cyclic dextrin to go in with their training just to help fuel that. And it should be so light that it's not bothering them as they train. But in an ideal world, it'd be at least after 1 or 2 meals. And the second question, if that's what you have to do to get the session in, train at 9 p.m. and then train at 5 a.m., then so be it. With that, I'd just be cautious of what you're training. So if you're going to train, I don't know, quads at 9 p.m, I'm not going to train glutes in the morning because there's a lot of crossover there. So you might do a quads and then arms or an upper body session. Ideally, you'd separate them by, I'm just putting a number out, 24 hours or so. But getting the job done is far more important than when. But when you sit back and actually say that, that's kind of like training twice in a day. Yeah. So it's less than ideal, Kayla. And this question you haven't actually sent me. So
so let's say you can train. How many days a week does Kayla train? Remember
4 or 5, but
So let's say initially as a client you've said, okay, I can allocate 4 days a week.
She's 5.
Okay, so let's say you can allocate 5 days a week. Now, we'll put them in your calendar on the days that initially you say to us. Let's say Monday to Friday for ease. But if you can't do Monday to Friday, like honestly, like our job isn't there to say like you have to train Monday to Friday, you have to check in that day, you have to do it that day.
No, they have to check in that day.
Okay, check-ins. Sorry, check-ins. You have to do it on check-in day, but we're not there to say you have to do it Monday to Friday. If you want to because our coaching app works like an iPhone calendar, for example. If you can't train that session on Friday, you can just put your finger on it and drag it over to Saturday and train over on Saturday as well. As long as you're getting in those 5 sessions during the week, if you have to move things around your calendar or work out on a different day than what's planned for you, that's cool with us. Just as long as you're kind of ticking those boxes and getting those workouts done, it's absolutely fine.
I think when you just thinking about processing the question, it is kind of like training twice in a day, like I just said.
Yeah.
However, we have like so much metrics to track. So if you're training at 9 p.m. and you're still progressing on your lifts, and you're still feeling good, and you're still recovering well, and then you're doing the same at 5 a.m. and you're still progressing your lifts, carry on doing it. If you're not, then you need to definitely rejig it. But I think especially when you're dieting further, there's a lot less food going in, especially in between those sessions. So if you're training at 9, you finish at 10, you have a post-workout meal, you're up at 5, are you eating again?
Yeah.
There's not much going in between that little window to fuel and to recover.
Yeah.
So do it for as long as you can, and then eventually I think you will eventually stall, I believe.
I'll just give me as an example of training timing, because I'm a stickler for habit. Like, I need to train in the morning, and for some reason, like mentally, like I have to be at the gym at like 8:39. So what I actually do personally, and like I'm in a situation where I can do that. Most of my clients are US based, so I kind of have the morning to myself. So like the morning is like my time kind of thing. So it's like, it's my gym time, take my little man to nursery, I go to the gym, I kind of do admin work, etc. And then, so I am working in the morning, but then the afternoon is slightly more intensive working, or I've got a lot more clients messaging me, sending form checks, whatever, and that kind of happens more towards the afternoon. So I do allow myself that time consistently to train in the morning, and I know that, especially right now, because of calorie intake, if I train in the afternoon, like my energy is much lower, so I know that I need to do everything I can to make sure I get my training in the morning. If I can't get it in at 8:39 because I've got to be somewhere, I would rather, and I'm not necessarily suggesting do this, I'd rather wake up and lose some sleep and get it done earlier, because
That's definitely very person dependent.
yeah, I would rather lose sleep and get it done than have to do it. Even if I've got loads of time in the afternoon, I would rather lose sleep and get it done in the morning. But that's just me and how I deal with it, not necessarily what I'm recommended doing at all.
Yeah, I like to train late morning, but I think it's just a routine.
Yeah.
And everyone has you have your morning routine. You just get comfortable doing that, and your body adapts to it. You've had that one meal probably, and that just becomes the norm.
Yeah.
Whereas before, when I used to be a teacher, I used to have, I think, 2 or 3 meals in before, and that became the norm.
Yeah.
Your body will adapt to whatever it has to do repeatedly to keep progressing.
Yeah.
But then if you chuck in the odd afternoon or the odd this and that, then it will throw you off. But if you kept doing the afternoon session, you'd be fine and prepared and ready for it.
So because we've spent a long time on one question, as we always do,
That was
next question.
9 minutes, I think.
Bryn Biley asks, so Bryn's my client, her partner is your client. So what's this? I'd love to hear you guys chat about your different training styles. That's because it's coming from the partner, Richard training with you and Bryn training with me, and they obviously see each other's training program. For example, I know James keeps the same exact routine for weeks on end, whilst Gareth changes it, I believe, every 4... Well, you should know, because I work with you.
change hers.
Yeah, I believe, every 4 to 5 weeks. I think it would be interesting to hear the insight between the two different perspectives. But smiley face, love hearts.
Is this Gen Pop?
So, for context, Bryn I would class Bryn as formerly Gen Pop, and she is transitioning to her first ever show. And Richard,
Which is the same.
is the exact same. So we're kind of in the middle here.
My take on it is, I've been on I've been training plans for 6 months, 9 months, whatever it is, and I think a lot of people want 4-week plans, 5-week plans, 6 weeks plans for entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
You have, or maybe you, but haven't, not yet anyway, people sign up for a result. They don't sign up for entertainment.
Yeah.
Getting good at movements, getting good at your bench press, your squat, or whatever lift it is, and progressing there is where I think you'll see the most progress, rather than 4 weeks on let's say we're doing a barbell back squat, you're doing that for 4 weeks. The first week, you might be new to the movement. The second week, you're establishing like baseline numbers between the first and second week. You've got 2 weeks to progress, and then you're doing something else. Now I'm doing a front squat, so I have to do that, establish the movement, create baselines, and then it's going to rotate again. Whereas if we're on it for 20 weeks, you are getting better and better and better at the movement, and we can progress with the weight, we can progress with the reps, we can progress with the form, the time of detention, and so there's so many avenues to improve that for me personally it can't be done in 4 to 6 weeks.
So it's interesting because I agree with everything you say. Just a slightly different approach. Like we've spoken about on podcasts before, like there's plenty of ways to skin a cat. So Bryn as an example. So with Bryn, we have 4 or 5 week plans generally. That isn't necessarily how I program for everyone. So my kind of method is I will start out with, for most people, a 4 to 5 week training phase. We see how they do with it. We layer in exercises if we need to, change them if we need to, equipment availability, injuries coming in, wear and tear, whatever. Sometimes things happen and need to be changed around. But I tend to start people with a 4 to 5 week plan. And then I'm quite big at looking at the workout numbers and seeing kind of improvements in that, but also kind of understanding that person's psychology. Now, when it comes to certain people, some people you can feel and understand because they're saying it, that a 4 week plan, 5 week plan is, they're getting bored. And I've got someone at the moment who I swear doesn't listen to this, by the way, so it's fine. Hope he doesn't listen to this.
Now you've nailed it down.
Yeah. Seems to want a new training plan every 2 weeks. But this is, you don't know them, don't you?
No, but remember, you gave me one who was the same.
Yes, okay.
Every week was like, new training plan. You just started it last week.
Yeah. This is someone that comes from, they do come from a CrossFit background as well and like to kind of change things quite frequently. And it's trying to educate them that, gradually we've built him up to, I think, 5 weeks now. But I can feel the pressure to change it soon. But going back to what I was saying, so I tend to put together initially 4 or 5 week phases. And then if I'm seeing continuous improvements, why not push that for longer? I will try and push that phase for as long as I possibly can. Some people, super happy to do a phase for 12 weeks, whatever, sometimes longer, right? Sometimes people are like 4 weeks is a push. I can't do the same things. I need a new exercise. And you can tell they tend to be people that are doing the plan and then tag you on Instagram stories of them doing an exercise that's not on the plan. So you can tell those people need shorter phases. But no, 100%, I completely agree that most people, if not all people, from a physiological point of view, from a development point of view, benefit from doing longer phases than 4 week training phases. And tend to benefit through really kind of pushing them 12, 14, 15, sometimes longer. The way I get around it with people that only want short phases is that the next phase, let's say it's a 4 week training phase, the next phase is pretty much the same as the previous phase. And I would see it as we've just done some exercise. It's like a sneaky way I do it. We've done some exercise swaps that makes it seem like a new plan, but the reality is the carryover from strength from, say, doing an exercise in phase 1 has had a good carryover to the exercise in phase 2 of the equivalent. So they've seen it in their head as a swap and something different, but in my head it's like, actually, we're pretty much trending the exact same movement plan and can continually push that. But 100% agree.
So I think your CrossFitter, they're different.
Yeah.
They, was it WODs, and it's like, they got names like, I don't know,
Murph?
Lucy or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's go do this workout, run, this. And then they just try and beat that time. But they don't do that every single week. Yeah. So to switch from, this sporadic training and they do it to classes. So if you were going to a fitness class, they wouldn't be doing the same thing every week. So he's in that mindset. So it's just creating that switch to, I know we're not bodybuilders, but we're trying to make our body look a certain way. So I find I would rather educate them and explain my rationale, and then I always use myself as a reference point as I've done my own training plan for 6 to 9 months. I've seen this much progress. That's why I do it.
Yeah.
I also, in that 6 to 9 months, it might not be exactly the same, but the baseline is the same, and it's, have you stalled on lift? And I mean, have you really stalled?
Yeah.
Like, you stalled for weeks.
Yeah.
Not 1 week where you're a bit tired and you couldn't, you know.
I think
and
some
you want
people
new
see that.
exercise.
I've reached a plateau.
Yeah.
Well, like for 1 week, yeah. But strength isn't linear. Strength doesn't do that. It's like.
And every exercise, you can't say, I know we ask, how's your strength going? One exercise not going up doesn't dictate your whole week of 5 workouts and, you know, 8 to 10 exercises in each one.
Yeah.
So, and even then, you've got 3-4 sets in each exercise. So if you don't, you know, your top set doesn't improve, but your back off does, you know. So I think it's looking at the average. Are you progressing?
Yeah.
And if you're not, we try again next week.
Yeah.
And maybe again the week after. And if we're steadily not improving, that bench press might become a chest press. And it's the same movement pattern, but doing it in a slightly different way, slightly different muscle fibers being recruited. We can progress there and potentially swap it again if it happens, or go back and see, now I'm back on the bench press, are my numbers steadily rising again?
Next question.
That was, what was that, 6 minutes, I think?
6 minutes? That's a
getting
good one for
shorter,
us. Yeah, it's good. And by the way, Bryn, so because we're obviously looking to compete, bikini in 12?
No,
when
you're
is
way
it?
off, 20.
20 weeks?
21
Yeah, because
weeks.
we're not in prep at the moment.
Yeah.
It's closer to.
It's like 20 weeks.
So what, Bryn, you'll actually start to notice is that your training phases will now get to become longer because now we're really trying to zone in on competing. So,
For context, Bryn and Richard, partners, I don't know how long Bryn's been with you, but Richard's been with me a while, been in a gaining phase, been on the same training plan, but he's made so much progress. There's so much more muscle on his frame, and now they've picked out a show they're going to be doing together.
Yeah.
So then hopefully later in the year we'll have a podcast to be able to put them up and you can see them. So
We put faces to the names. Next question. Alexandra Hemsworth. As a long-hour shift worker, that's a tough one. Should I prioritise training or recovery when I'm fatigued? So Alexandra is one of my clients. She's in Australia. She's a bikini competitor, WBFF bikini competitor, and I know that she pretty much wakes up at like 2 a.m. every day and goes straight to work. So she has a massively hard time with eating. So as a long-hour shift worker, should I prioritise training or recovery when I'm fatigued?
the shift's always the same?
Pretty much, yeah. That's the good thing about it, is that they
It's
are
not like morning and the nights.
pretty much the same days of the week. They're always like super early morning that she's awake. But then if I remember rightly, she might finish work at like 4 p.m. or something like that. And then the trouble is that we've had is that she's finished work, feels like junk, and then initially when we first started, she went home, she lost that momentum, tired, didn't want to go to the gym, etc., etc. Whereas instead, it's finish work, gym, keep the momentum. You know, we even put a little bit of food while she was at work. Like, she's finished work, she's, you know, has rice cakes and peanut butter. Just shifted some meals around a little bit. So instead of having like later meals in the evening, we've kind of moved some snacks forward so that even if that food doesn't have time to digest, she's like having it before she's training, so she's feeling a little bit better during training. But the main question really is, should I prioritise training or recovery when I'm fatigued?
That question is obviously recovery.
Yeah.
It's always going to be recovery. But the bigger picture is, and what I completely agree with, is to shift the food around her training window to fuel her so she feels better. And then it's just about her not going home between work and evening, and just creating that new routine, which I think we touched on earlier, maybe in the last podcast, about your body will adapt to whatever you do. So the fact that she works night shifts, so I don't think she's a shift worker, she just works night shifts all the time, her body will adapt to training at 4, going to sleep at maybe 8, and it will just become like clockwork. But if anyone asks the question, and what's more important of training or recovery, it's going to be recovery.
It's when your body grows. You know, that's why it's always important to have that discussion with your coach, and like, how much training can your body deal with and recover from? Like, you know, there were some points where Alex actually wanted to do more training, and I was like, look, I don't think, you know, I can feel that you're struggling with the current training, but if you want an extra session in the week, fine, let's try it. And I kind of proved my point by doing that, and a week later it was like, I'm tired, blah blah blah, okay, well, let's put it back again.
Maybe it's about managing her volume. So if she wants to train 5 times, or was it 4 to 5 she's gone to?
4 now, yeah.
So if she wants that 5th, but just spreading some of the volume from the 4 sessions into a 5th, and then it's maybe she has a better routine by doing it 5 days a week rather than resting 3 days a week is quite a lot. So doing it so often that it's just ingrained in you. And then depending on, it sounds like she's got a long shift, she might even have 3 days off per week, so she'll be able to get some training sessions in those days and also try to catch up on her sleep, which is going to be vital.
And that's something, like, in all honesty, like Alexandra has been struggling. So in WBFF, so we were going for season A, which would be like, I think in a few weeks' time at the moment, but actually, like, things just didn't pan out. Body wasn't responding very well. Work, sleep was a massive issue. And I was just honest with her and just said, look, we're not going to be ready. Like, and especially when she started with me, she was 12 weeks out. We had to go straight in, and quite far off where she needed to be. So basically, we've said, okay, we're going for season B. So like right now, let's just get to where we need to be, where your body needs to be, before we start a prep. Let's prioritize sleep, recovery, routine, etc., etc. Because so she's in the Gold Coast, I believe, and her apartment has, I think, bad air conditioning. So she's like, when she does sleep, it's like massively disrupted. She's hot. She's not sleeping well. So, and that impacts obviously the rest of the day.
But that's something she needs to manage now, especially. So sort out that sleeping pattern, sort out, I keep saying routine, because when she gets into prep, recovery is going to be even harder because she's got less food driving recovery. So I don't know when season A and B is, but if you can get that done now, it should just follow through into prep.
That's the most important thing when people talk about a pre-prep phase. Well, pre-prep phase is, well, let's see if you can prep by being in a routine. Let's see if you can get into routine, have some consistency within that. Let's see if you can, you know, you're not going to sleep any better than you are, you know, right now. You know,
sleep worse.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. Yeah, pre-prep is almost practice for prep, kind of in terms of routine and just getting your body in a good spot before you actually prep, rather than contact us, we need to prep now, we're 12 weeks out from a show. Well, like, unfortunately, it's kind of us that decides how far you're out from a show, you know, ish. It's a mutual conversation, isn't it? If you want to compete in X amount of weeks, then we can get you looking your best, but we might also say to you, like, okay, we can get you ready, but if you can push that show back X amount of time, then you might look better. We'll always give you an honest opinion. You know, in an ideal world, we'd rather work with you before you think you should start a peak, so we can get you in a good spot. Prep brain.
That's what I'm here for now. So when is the
please correct me. There's probably so many things, so many words I've said.
You're good for now.
Whatever I'm saying on this podcast, like, honestly, just ignore me.
Wait for the next one. I'm going to try and get him in before the show.
So in an ideal world, you want to work with a coach to put you in a good spot before you go into that prep.
And I know this is about Gen Pop, so it's about being in a good position before fat loss rather than a prep. So it's about not doing excessive amounts of cardio, not doing excessively low calorie intake before sort of beginning your fat loss journey.
That's it.
Next one.
Okay.
I think that was 6.
Not bad. Last question. Okay, Jesse Cornin, who is a Team EPT client, figure competitor. Impact of changing exercise order in training when the equipment is occupied. How it affects performance in the workout, how best to handle it. Any thoughts around it?
We discussed this at Ultraflex, didn't we, Derby?
We discussed this on
YouTube
a podcast.
as well.
That's not, we discussed it. To be fair, Jesse, we haven't released the podcast yet.
I can't keep up. So
to
we've
this
got another
day.
one
So,
to go up.
Yeah, so there's another podcast. So we got the podcast back a couple of weeks ago. It's to go up, probably scheduled for next.
Oh, the recent one I've been okay, cool.
Yeah,
I got you now.
so we've got an entire podcast where we're talking about exercise and stuff like that.
But we will answer it again.
Yeah, so by the time this one comes out, you should have your answer. But, for to make sure that we're kind of covering the question, let's answer it briefly.
I got one question through as well, so I mean, okay.
Okay.
But this question...
Exercise order when the gym's busy.
In an ideal world, you want to be following your training split in your training order, and that's the best way to track your progress. Because if you do exercise A last, you're very likely to not be as strong as you were last week. However, if someone is on exercise A, let's put it in the middle, B and C, someone's doing, the chest fly. I'd rather you did something else and went back to it and stayed warm. If possible, join in. If you're not going to bother them, especially if it's like a pin-loaded machine, join in, do the workout together. It's very rare that someone's going to say no if there's not like a group of them.
Yeah.
But ideally join them so it doesn't throw you off too much. But needs must. So if I was to put it in a logbook or in my planner, I would just add a note and say exercise C was done here rather than here. So that progress can't be compared to the last one.
Yeah.
And the next week you put it back where it's supposed to be and you just keep going. I think the main thing and my take-home message with this is always just go in and train as hard as you can. Like even things like the rep ranges that I put in, they're only there as a guide. So I might put in 8 to 10. They're only there as a guide for you to select the weight where you think you'll fail in between those rep ranges.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you get to 10 and you stop.
Yeah.
You keep going.
Yeah.
And then next time that's too light.
Yeah.
So it's about selecting weights which are challenging but achievable. But the bottom line is training as hard as you can to failure. So just train hard. But I know if you're doing a big compound lift, you're doing your squat, you definitely don't want to be doing it last. But shit happens sometimes.
That's
Shit
it.
happens.
That's it.
What do you think?
Exact same thing. Like, I wouldn't. If you have to change the exercise order, change the exercise order. If someone's using the piece of equipment you want, don't be the person that sits there and waits for it to be free and getting cold and losing workout momentum and making your workout last longer than what it needs to. Go to another exercise. Go ideally the next exercise or one later on that won't kind of affect it, and then come back to it. And it's I just wouldn't, when you come back to it, sweat the numbers too much. But then again, if you can come back and push to it, push that exercise, then great.
A better way to monitor that progress might be like on an RPE.
Yeah.
So I guess we're looking for 10s anyway. RPE, so the rate of perceived exercise. So when I squat, I do as heavy as I can. I do 200 kilos and it feels like a 10 at the start of my workout. At the end of my workout, I'm more tired, so I have to do 180, but the RPE, I still feel like it's a 10. So I tick that box, job done, successful session, go home, rather than waiting around earlier in my session for the squat bar, getting cold, and ultimately delaying my session so it's longer, especially when your session is an hour to an hour and a half, then you might have 20 to 60 minutes cardio, and you've got things to do. We have lives outside the gym. So train as hard as you can, quite simply.
What's your question, James?
My question from Swift Strength Coach. Powerlifting in the off-season for a bodybuilder. Oh, this isn't Gen Pop, but we can touch on it.
Yeah, we can touch on it. I think there are merits to changing rep ranges, changing training styles in the off-season, but it depends on what your goals are in the off-season. If you're someone that needs to grow, then going to a powerlifting type training setup isn't going to optimize your growth. Like, rest periods are a lot longer. The exercises that you're using aren't necessarily going to stimulate as much muscle group as much muscle as other exercises that you could be using instead. Nothing wrong with a bench, a squat, and a deadlift, but when it comes to powerlifting, the aim of the game, aim of the sport is using the technique that allows you to lift the most weight, maximize leverage factors, so you're concentrated on the external weight. Whereas when it comes to bodybuilding, you're using exercises as tools to build muscle. So you're using that in a different way. So for example, if I'm bench pressing to build muscle, I'm probably actually going to be lifting a little bit lighter. I'm going to be a little bit more focused. I'm going to be more concentrating on my chest doing the work. I might even have a slightly different grip. I might even place my feet in a different position. I might have less of an arch. I might even, there is research on the bench press to say that actually having your feet on the bench increases chest recruitment versus having your feet on the floor. I'm not suggesting...
But on the floor generates more power.
Exactly, to get the bar up. So like there's different things you've got to consider. And then like... a barbell back squat, is it the best exercise for you in bodybuilding to build your quads? Because that's probably how we're seeing it in bodybuilding, as a quads and glutes exercise. Whereas if you're a powerlifter, you're seeing it as, how can I lift the most weight? You're probably using a low bar squat position, which allows you to, bouncing out the hole a lot more, faster repetitions. So it depends on what your goal is in the off season. But then again, if it's a simple case of enjoying your training, chasing other goals, wanting to be a powerlifter, then absolutely in the off season do it. And then you could almost do it like, I'm a powerlifter at that time of year and I'm a bodybuilder that time of year. But is it the best way to get you to be a bodybuilder of
to be your best version,
to be your best version of a bodybuilder or your best version of a powerlifter? Then
I completely agree. But I think it's not always about being the best bodybuilder or the best powerlifter. It's about doing what makes you happy.
Yeah.
So I would definitely say powerlift in your off season, because your food is high, you got energy to train for maybe a longer period of time. So the only difference is you program in those specific lifts, maybe some more accessory works for them, and they'll take a bigger chunk of your workout, and then you just switch to a more of a bodybuilding style session. I think you can do both. I briefly had a stint before lockdown, and I was supposed to do a meet.
Okay.
And I believe, if I remember correctly, it was a week or two before, maybe 1 week before, I was supposed to go on, not a stage, a platform.
Yeah.
And I was going to do my first powerlifting meet. Lockdown came. I was gutted. Because obviously with powerlifting, you can't train without a barbell.
Yeah.
So I was in the house training with bands and dumbbells, because we didn't have the space. Couldn't get a barbell anyway. And then getting a barbell and enough plates to powerlift is a different story. So that dream went out the window. That dream is long gone.
I would say as a powerlifter, so you can have some good success as a powerlifter, as a bodybuilder, if you use something like a conjugate method in powerlifting, so more popularized by like Westside barbells. So with that approach, you actually have days which are more hypertrophy focused on top of your powerlifting days. So like your accessory work is almost hypertrophy focused, like the reps method is more hypertrophy focused. So even as a powerlifter, you're somewhat bodybuilding during that powerlifting phase.
Sounds good.
So yeah, that's kind of my advice really. I think today we've kind of covered quite a few topics on this Q&A. So I think if you've got any questions that you want to cover in like future episodes, like, because I think these last two episodes have worked quite well because you've had such great questions for us, drop them below, and obviously like we'll keep putting it out there if you've got any questions and things like that, because this is kind of about you guys and helping you guys out. and kind of answering the questions that you have burning inside that you want us to be talking about.
But I think moving forward, even if we have topics to discuss, we can even quickly, for 10 minutes at the start or the end, discuss your questions. So it's a regular thing. So any questions, fire them in. Join us on the Facebook group.
Yeah.
You can ping them there or send us on a DM. And I'm sure you've got some plugs to add. So
Facebook group, just type in Elite Physique Training for our Facebook group. You've got a Facebook page, Elite Physique Training. Instagram is Elite Physique Training. And if you're interested in coaching services working with one of the team, including both myself and James, then just head to thefitnessmaverick.com, and straight there you will see online coaching, which is Team Elite Physique Training. And you've
got some of the girls as well on the team, some of the girl coaches.
Yeah, we've got a full team of coaches.
Yeah.
So you can work with any of us, and just find out more information at thefitnessmaverick.com homepage, and you'll find out about our coaching services there, who we work with. And look, we're one of those where we say we're not a good fit for everyone. Coaching isn't a good fit for everyone. That's why you book a call with us. You book a consultation call to chat with a coach that you choose. And we discuss with you whether you're a good fit. We get a good understanding of your background, your training history, what motivates you, your future goals, etc. And we can give you our honest feedback about whether you're a good fit and the type of kind of progress that you can see with us. So head to thefitnessmaverick.com and you can find our online coaching services there.